is it 2 hours a week with the team right now?
2 hours a week of basketball workouts, and so depending on the week, if we're on the road recruiting, that would be 2 1-hour sessions. If we're here the whole week, then we usually go 3 40-minute segments. And you know, our guys understand that that's the directed workouts, and at this time of the year, they have to do a lot of stuff on their own as well, and they still get the 6 hours of strength training and conditioning and all that stuff as well. So when you add that to the summer school and different things like that, it's still a very busy summer.
How does that help, considering the roster turnover that you guys are expecting for this year, complete with the new students, the freshmen and the transfers? How much does this time of year bode well for them as far as, like you say, doing so many things on their own, but also getting that couple of hours from you that they can?
Well, I think the 2 hours with us is important, but the time they spend together is even more important. You know, every team is different. Every year is a different team, different dynamics. Older guys take on a more leadership role. New guys have to figure out what the transition is all about from high school to college, and you lay some of the groundwork down during this time of the year. There's no question.
So is chemistry a concern with 7 out of the 13 scholarships being you guys? Or?
You know, not if you have good guys. You know, obviously, the fall time when we get a little more basketball and start getting into practice and different things like that, you have to make sure guys understand where their role will be and how they can impact the team. But you know, it's that way every year, to be honest with you, because every year guys' roles change. You know, when you got good enough kids that want to work hard and do the things that you ask them to do, the chemistry is built more times than not in the locker room, walking up and down to class, in the dorms, different things like that.
How difficult has it been to, I guess, deal with this? This is the first time you've had this much, you know, rollover in terms of players, losing like half your team to either graduation or different circumstances?
Yeah, it's part of the job. You know, it hasn't been, you know, difficult wouldn't be a word I would use. It's just it's a challenge. But there's, you know, this is not isolated to one particular program. This happens quite a bit. And so you just need to, you know, you make sure that you got really good leadership among the guys, and you're directing the guys in the path that you want them to follow, and understand where we're at as a team and as a program.
So how do you best prepare, I mean, for something that is as challenging as this, despite the fact that, like you said, it is going on all across the country? How do you prepare for something like this?
Well, you just, in terms of personally, you just make sure you understand exactly where you think your team needs to improve in, both as individuals and collectively, and you emphasize that with the guys. You understand where the league is at as we get into league play, what you need to do to be successful there. It's just another part of the process that we're under, and as long as we're continuing making that forward progress, the guys understand exactly where we're at. You know, our first recruiting class hasn't started their junior year yet. You know, so when you're talking about exactly where we're at, you know, we haven't even crossed the halfway point yet with the guys that we've brought in, and everybody understood where we were at as a program, you know, when we brought that first class in. So you just need to keep moving forward, staying positive, and making sure the guys are taking care of their business. They've done a great job, as always, in the spring semester, in the summer, in the classroom, and they're growing as, you know, as individuals and collectively as a team.
Is the structure of these workouts different than maybe it would be otherwise, either to get guys more acquainted with each other or for you to do different evaluations?
No, I don't think so. You know, we're in July. You know,
right.
We're not putting in offensive sets and defensive schemes and different things like that. The summer is the time for guys to improve and get better, work on their weaknesses, accent their strengths. That doesn't change. Now, are those keys incorporated in some of the things that we'll do eventually? No question about it. And that's kind of par for the course.
Up front, you lose Miller and Cam. You have Sampson and likely Mitchell and Cox. How are those three guys going to fit into the scheme of things?
Well, obviously they're all different players, and with AD as a freshman and Ben's recovering and doing well since he's been here. you know, you have a lot of different options. You can play smaller at times if you have to, but you know, those guys have college experience. They've been through some big battles in the past. So again, it's just getting them to grasp how we do things more on a day in and day out basis. The basketball, to be honest with you, in a lot of situations like this, is the least of your concerns, because they all come from good programs, successful programs for the most part. So they understand what it takes to compete at this level.
Are they interchangeable as far as position goes?
It's July 2nd. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. I don't know.
I'm curious, though, you talk about how you don't put in offensive sets and defenses and so forth this time of year, and you coach them 2 hours a week, but do you use that for evaluation as well? You've recruited these guys and you know their skill sets to a great degree, but you learn more watching what's happening out here?
The most important thing that you start learning, and things that we've emphasized, is their competitiveness, which is really important. Their toughness, which is important. You get some of that through our speed, agility, and conditioning and weightlifting as well. There's no greater place to build toughness than in the weight room. And so, you're always evaluating. I don't think there's ever a time where you're not evaluating, analyzing, and trying to see exactly where each player is at individually, where they fit in down the road, and at the same time, what guys' personalities are. Because again, we're talking about guys from the ages of 18 to 22. They're going to change during their time. Marcus Georges-Hunt is a remarkably different person and young man than he was when he was an 18-year-old when he came here, out of North Clayton High during the spring after he got done playing. And that's what you want. And so now, are you able to put more on his plate? Are you able to have Chris Bolden, as he's grown and matured, do the same thing, and so forth. So when you look at all those pieces, you're always doing a lot of different analysis and evaluation and talking to the guys about where they need to get to.
What do you think is the most difficult challenge for the guys that are transferring in? Because like you said, the freshmen that are ascending to, from high school to college and have to learn the level of play, like you said, your transfer students, they know the level of play in terms of Division I college basketball. So what's the biggest challenge for them as they go from one institution to the next?
I think for them it's always going to be, just a comfort level. They're in a certain routine no matter where they're at. And although there's common threads among programs, everybody does things a little differently. But again, with that, there's a maturity level for those guys that makes that transition a little bit easier.
Can you talk a little bit about how Travis is doing?
Sure. His progress has been tremendous. He's able to do a lot of stuff on the court now in terms of individual stuff, ball handling, shooting, shots off the move, different things like that. His strength, his body has changed dramatically in the interim. His confidence, I think, has grown as well because of that. He's anxious. There's no doubt about it. At the same time, you don't win any games or you don't build your team in July when it comes to taking any chances. So, these next 8 weeks heading into September 1st are going to be very, very important for him, and he understands that. And, he's taking a math class or test right now. So he's got his priorities in line with what's important at this time of the year.
Brian, you talked a little while ago about how from year to year some players' roles change. Does your approach change year to year? And I'm wondering that because you got 7 new faces, plus you got Robert coming off his transfer year and Travis coming back. Is it where one year it's more about teaching the players to do what you want them to do, fitting your system, and other years more about seeing what they can do, evaluating right now, for example, and then changing and tweaking some of your philosophies and your strategies based on the skill sets of these guys once you see them here and you see them doing what they can do?
Well, I think there's some things that are the foundation and identity of this, this program that we need to continue to get better at. But in terms of the individual team, the reason I think our system has been successful in the past is because it offers a lot of flexibility when it comes to personnel. As I said earlier, we can play bigger, which we have in the past. You can also play smaller. You know, obviously you recruit and bring guys in that fit the general mold of what you're trying to do, but there's a lot of tweaking that comes to each individual team, and obviously 2 hours a week is not a good enough amount of time to get a true feel for exactly all the tweaks that need to be made. So that usually comes during those first 3 or 4 weeks of full practice.
What do you see out of Robert Sampson at this point?
You know, he's obviously put on some good weight in terms of getting stronger. You know, his conditioning is much better. He's worked hard on his skill set. You know, he shot a very high percentage from the three as a freshman or as a sophomore, but not so much as a junior. And we had a talk today, was that, you know, due to shot selection or not being prepared to shoot, different things like that. And so he's really worked on his focus and his discipline when it comes to his shooting. But he gives us, you know, an added dimension with a guy with good size that is a high quality rebounder. He rebounds out of his area. He's a range rebounder, can run the court exceptionally well, and has a good skill package that he has, you know, like I said, 8 to 10 more weeks to continue to work on.
Do you think maybe this whole transfer craziness will calm down now?
Absolutely not.
Even if they change it to where they tack it on at the end instead of having.
Well, that would only be with the waivers. I think, you know, I think that if a kid does transfer, he should get that. If he gets hurt afterwards or whatever, he should get that additional year anyways. Because the last time I looked, I thought we were in it to graduate the kids, and so that will give them a better opportunity to do so. But I think it's here to stay. You know, I think it's here to stay. I think the idea of eliminating those waivers and so forth may curtail it a little bit, but I just think it's the society that we live in right now. If you don't like something, you move.
Is it more of a symptom of the AAU culture and kind of how all that stuff's
I don't think
gone,
it's.
or?
I think the AAU culture is a symptom of our culture. I don't think anything's isolated. I just think that's, you know, that's just the world we live in right now. And, you know, and some of them, the problem is, again, whenever you talk about something as generic as a transfer or this or whatever, you start lumping all of them in together, and that's not the case. And that's, you know, one of the problems. I think that's why the NCAA and some of the stuff was trying to do it on a case-by-case basis. I think because of that, though, it's gotten too big for even them to handle. So I think it's here to stay, because I don't see our culture or our society changing very much when it comes to, you know, we want something, we want it right now, we want to be able to go through the drive-through, we want to be able to hit 1 minute on the microwave and get our food, you know. And it's the same thing with careers, with guys and playing. And so what I say is you're going to see it happening more in other sports now too, because usually what happens in men's football and men's basketball, you start seeing move to other sports also.
How close was Robert to staying? I mean, I'm sure you don't want to talk too much about that, but
I have no idea.
I imagine that was probably the most frustrating transfer situation you've had as a head coach.
It was up there. I'm not sure it was the most frustrating.
Just one question about Daniel.
Yeah.
His standing on the Wizards Summer League squad.
Well, again, I think he's got a great opportunity with him. Obviously, a team that's on the rise. Randy Whitman has done a tremendous job with that young team last year. They were fun to watch in the playoffs. I think he does fit their style. As I always say, you know, the great teams in the NBA have 3 tremendous players. The good teams have 2, the bad teams have 1. That means even on the good teams, there's 10 niche role type players. And sometimes guys have a hard time accepting that, but the guys that do and find that niche end up making a pretty long career. The problem and the challenge is it may not be with the first team that you're with. Daniel has a niche in that league. There's no question about that. He just needs to find the right spot. I'm hoping it's with Washington. I really am.
Both waivers have been filed, or
What's
both
that?
waivers have been filed for Josh and.
Josh's
Charles?
waiver's already been approved.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that went through
Alright.
almost immediately. The other one, there's a little more paperwork involved in that. So
Okay.
that will probably be more towards the end of the summer. Very similar, maybe a little bit earlier than Trey's
Right.
was last year.
Thoughts on Louisville? It's finally official now, and it's league's gotten harder every year you've been here. This is just another.
Yeah, you're talking one of the premier programs in the country, not just over the past decade, but, for a long time. When you think of Louisville, as good as their football program has been, and as much of a boost that they give up the ACC in football, you think of Darryl Griffith, you think of Denny Crum, you think of the McRae brothers, and now you think of Coach Pitino in the national championship just 2 years ago. So, again, it just elevates our profile. It's great for our league. Again, I think we need to do a much better job as a league in terms of, promoting all those things. I didn't think maybe last year we took advantage of that. And I think one of the challenges that we have is because there's a couple programs that are national branded programs. I spent a lot of time in the Big Ten, and when Iowa beat Michigan State or Iowa beat Michigan in the Big Ten, everybody said, well, Iowa must be really good. Well, right now we're still in a position in our league sometimes when someone beats Syracuse or Duke, it's what's the matter with Syracuse and Duke. Just the mindset is different, and that's one of our biggest challenges as a league right now.